Another week, another legal talk with Hahn and Hahn attorneys here on eRadio. Joining us today is Isabella Mazzone from the firm, and today we're talking about the new draft labeling regulations. What changes can we expect to see on the labels of foods in the future? That's very interesting. Isabella, nice to chat to you again. I didn't think it would be so soon.
Yeah, I think it's only been 2 weeks since the last time we spoke, but I'm still very happy to speak to you.
Yeah,
so
same here. I don't mind. Yeah, so I can't even remember what we spoke about last time, but now, What was it?
Last time we actually spoke about what's to come in 2023.
Oh, yeah.
And funny enough, things have happened since then. So it's good. There's lots of things happening, changes and everything.
As long as they're good changes.
Well, we'll see.
Okay.
What happens.
But the last time we spoke, there was a rumor that change was coming for food labels, but there was nothing concrete. What has changed since?
Well, who would have thought? The new draft R2986 labeling and advertising regulations were actually published on the 31st of January, which was literally just a couple of hours after we spoke. So as I said in that previous interview, we've been expecting them, of course, but it obviously sent quite a bit of a shockwave throughout the industry.
Yeah, I can imagine, eh? And how long does the industry now have to comment on these regulations?
So as per the document that was actually published, the Department of Health has said that any interested persons are invited to submit any substantiated comments or representations by email to the DG of Health, which is Mr. Malose Matlala, within 3 months of the date of the publication of the notice attached to the regulation. So that means we have up until the 30th of April to submit comments. So it's quite a tight schedule, especially considering the fact that the document that they published is 244 pages long. So
sure.
If you're an interested party, it's time to get reading.
Yes, have it on your nightstand. That's a lot of reading to do, hey? Yo.
Oh, yes. It's given me a few headaches the past 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh, I can imagine. Now, Isabella, if the regulation is actually published as a final version after the time for comments has passed, what are the most important changes that we can expect to see?
Yeah, so obviously it's a draft, so it's nothing that we can really rely on at this point, but it is quite a good indication of what's to come. The document is extremely long, and the changes which have been implemented are quite substantial, especially in terms of the more scientific and technical aspects. We also obviously do not have 100% clarity as to whether this will in fact be the version that will be finalized, or whether or not the department will actually amend anything after receiving the comments. If we have to look at it historically, the department tends to publish irrespective of the comments. So for now, we are treating the document as if it will become the final one. If I had to start listing each and every change right now, we might be here until tomorrow. But I think the most important changes can be summarized for consumers as follows. So firstly, there will be a change in how the expiry dates are going to work. So the wording that is now permitted is either use by date or best quality before date, as well as date of manufacture or date of packaging. So best before dates have completely been scrapped. You now have to say best quality before. And sell-by dates have actually now been completely prohibited.
Wow.
Another interesting thing is that these use-by dates may now only be used if that date actually refers to the date whereafter the product becomes unsafe to consume. So you can't just slap on a use-by date. It has to have some scientific backing towards it. This is obviously to reduce food waste, which is actually a huge problem in our country. Interestingly enough, they have included a provision so as to allow for food to be donated, but only if the product has surpassed its best quality before date and if it is still completely safe to consume. There are various lists within the regulation which show which types of products have to use which type of date marking. So it will really depend on the type of product. Secondly, what most consumers will see that is going to change completely is the use of something called FOPL logos. FOPL standing for front of pack labeling logos. So these logos will be required to be placed on the very, very front of the food label to indicate when a food contains sugar, saturated fat, or sodium, which exceeds the limits inside of the regulation. They also require a logo when the product contains any amount of artificial sweeteners. So these logos will actually be covering 25% of the front of package according to the specifications outlined in this regulation and depending on the size and shape of the pack. How they will appear practically are triangular warning images, sort of like the ones you see at the back of cans of chemicals, in black and white, which will be really prominent on the label and will either indicate high in sugar, high in saturated fat, high in sodium, or simply contained artificial sweeteners. A lot of the products will have more than one of these warnings, so there will also be an exclamation mark before these logos so as to draw the consumer's attention to these logos. Interestingly enough, this doesn't just end at packaging. These warnings will have to be incorporated into the advertising of these products, including visual, multimedia, and audio advertisements. What this means is that TV ads, radio ads, etc. now have to carry various specifically worded health messages when it comes to the advertising of these types of products. Now, this is, quite a big change that's going to be implemented. Lastly, I think what is the most important to note is that there's an entire part of this regulation dedicated to health claims. I won't go into the nitty-gritty of each and every type of health claim, but many claims will now in fact be regulated. Slapping on any claim that companies feel is good for marketing, which, by the way, has been happening for many years and should not have been happening, will now be fully regulated under this regulation, should it come into force. These claims include function claims, which ultimately are claims that describe the physiological role and function of a nutrient or a substance, reduction of disease claims, whole grain claims, approved claims for oral health, such as claims you would see on a chewing gum, and claims for energy-restricted foodstuffs for weight reduction, slimming, or weight loss. So all of these claims are now fully regulated and described in the regulation. So companies now really have to think twice before placing these claims on their products, as there are very, very restricted circumstances as well as permitted wording that has to be followed and used when it comes to these types of claims. And so I think those are the three most important changes that I think consumers really will see if this regulation comes into force.
Well, Isabella, I'm quite taken aback by the changes that will come to the labels. I never imagined that. I mean, that's a lot of redesigning of the labels that will have to happen if that comes into effect.
Yeah, talk about redesigning. It's millions of rands of packaging that now needs to be changed.
Exactly.
So it's quite important that people go and read what exactly this could entail.
Yeah, and I mean, in the end, it's in the best interest of the consumer and to protect the consumer, of course. But I would love to see those little exclamation marks on the packaging. I'm going to look out for it if it comes into effect, of course. Yeah.
Yes, no, it should be very interesting. I think this year is going to be a whole new game for labeling.
That's exciting. Can you just give us those dates again? What are the cutoff dates for comment?
So the cutoff date for comments is the 30th of April. Mm-hmm. So you can just send an email. On the actual notice of the regulation, they have the email for Mr. Malose Matlala, and you can literally send it in the body of an email, your comments, based on which regulations you have something to say about.
Okay, Isabella, thank you so much. As always, it was nice catching up with you, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon, maybe in another 2 weeks.
Maybe in 2 weeks.
Great, it was nice catching up. Thank you so much.
Nice catching up. Thank you so much, Ian.
Are you or your business in trouble and struggling to find a solution? Call Hahn and Hahn Attorneys as we assist clients in finding solutions. We specialize in consumer and food law, commercial and construction law, forensic investigations and administrative law. Visit hahnlaw.co.za. That's HAHN. We assist clients nationwide. Hahn and Hahn Attorneys, because we care. Don't miss Legal Talk with Hahn and Hahn Attorneys, Wednesday mornings at 10 on eRadio.